distinguished faculty, master's and doctoral degrees. You should be very proud. This is a remarkable institution. Chicago is most fortunate to have it in its boundaries. Join me in welcoming also my spouse of 53 years and the co-founder of the Golden Apple Foundation, together with Sister Raylene Sweeney, and together they were the first executive directors of the Golden Apple Scholars of Illinois. The rumor was that we started, well, it was 28 years ago, 1985, 1986. Theory was that, and no one's disputed it, that we were watching the Academy Awards, and Pat said to Mike, or Mike said to Pat, you know, those should be teachers up there. That was a time when strikes were a common occurrence. We haven't had one for quite some time, and this one was no fun. And pray God we'll never have another. There are only 41 states. There are 41 states that disallow teacher strikes. Only 9 that allow it. And it's disquieting and hurtful. Whatever the merits of this strike, thank God it's over. Anyway, so we were watching the Academy Awards, and one of us said to the other, those should be teachers up there. And so that begat conversations with WTTW Channel 11 that agreed to televise the awards each year. And 28 years later, it's still live and in color on Channel 11 and 191. Three years later, Pat Koldyke and Sister Raylene and Dom Belmonte started Golden Apple Scholars of Illinois with 15 kids that were high school seniors, most of them of color, virtually all minorities. We started with 15 kids, and we used our Christmas card list to find the money to give them scholarships to go to Illinois colleges. And this year we'll graduate 135. We have over we have over 500 in college now, and Speaker Madigan and John Cullerton, the President of the Senate, have encouraged us to seek those ways, key ways, creative ways, to take that number from 135 to 250. I think we'll make it. This society desperately needs committed, idealistic, highly trained, well-trained men and women. In 2001, I went to Paul Vallis, who was then the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, and I said, look, the old Wright Junior College is in play on North Austin. Let me have that building. He said, what do you want to do with it? I said, I want to start a teacher academy there, where we would train men and women for a full year. Minorities. We'll train them for a full year under a master teacher, and we'll find a way to get them a master's degree during the course of their year. Vallis at that point was running, in his mind, running for public office. His span of attention was about 47 seconds. And so I said, look, I know you're busy, so why don't you give this chore to your chief of staff? He said, okay, I'll do that. His chief of staff was Arnie Duncan. And so we worked carefully with him. Our offices were right across the street. CPS was at 125 South Clark, and we were at 140 South Clark. So we put it together. We started. And we now have 30 schools in Chicago, 9 of which are resident teacher training academies, where we train men and women for a full year and under master teachers. They start in June and July with work on their master's degree at National Louis. They tell me that we've got a pretty good website. I'm not computer literate, so I have to take it on grace and their understanding. But to each of you graduates, I urge you to look at that website, because there may be times in your life now when you will encounter parishes, you'll encounter cities, you'll encounter circumstances where the schools for the poor are not getting the job done. And the one thing that we have proved at AUSL is that if you train men and women, idealistic, highly motivated men and women, bright men and women, they have to have at least a 3-point to be in our program. We interview 2,000 men and women a year, and we take 200. And we're graduating 200 last year, 200 this year. And then this mayor and this public schools, Barbara Byrd Bennett, gave us 6 schools last year, 7 this year. And we staff those schools with the men and women that we've trained. Our record is, to put it bluntly, exemplary. Now, isn't that a surprise? That you have terrific teachers, highly motivated, mid-career men and women who care very deeply about children, who don't believe the myth that because of poverty, they can't learn, they can't hack it. These residents that we train are Latino and African American, a minority of whites, and they're getting the job done. And in time, if you give us enough time, we'll have 70 or 80 schools that will have been transformed in this way. I wrote quite a different speech, and then I'm not very good at sticking to the printed word anyway. So I just thought, look, I've only got one shot at you. You're about to go forth, you're going to parishes, you're going to places, you're going to be involved in social justice. You're going to carry the word, the banner of fairness and decency for the poor, under the banner of Jesus Christ. You can do this, but you must understand the road is not an easy one. There are many roadblocks in your way. There are vested interests that care about the status quo, that care very deeply about the status quo. When I was first appointed by Mayor Daley to the Chicago School Finance Authority, I didn't realize how bad it was. There were 15 board members. They didn't speak to one another. There was a rotation of superintendents, as they were then called. At that point, for young Richard M. Daley, then the new mayor, there was a guy named Tim Degnan who had worked for the old man, Richard J. Daley. He was from the 13th Ward. He knew every political bone and body in the city. So I thought, well, here's little Marty Koldyke, the do-gooder. Why don't you go see Mr. Degnan? He might listen to you. And so I called him up, and I said, Mr. Degnan? He said, call me Tim. He said, I'd like to come and see you. I said, look, I know about you. Rich appointed you, and he's got confidence in you, and I'm sure you'll do a good job. I said, look, I'd like to come and see you. I've got a couple of ideas. He said, So made the appointment, went over to see him, and I started the same pitch. I've got some ideas I'd like to try out on you. He said, look, Mike, you're going to do a good job. But the first thing you've got to understand about the Chicago public schools is you got to blow the damn place up. That wasn't a very good start for little Marty Koldyke, the do-gooder. But Degnan was right. The forces of darkness were well entrenched, and we're after them now. And with our charter schools, and with our AUSLs, and with our Golden Apples, and with our Noble Streets, and with our UNOs, we've got them on the run. Give us time. But most of all, as you go forth, be thinking about what you need to do to see to it that men and women just like you will grace those classrooms and give those kids a chance in the richest country in the world. I know you'll do it. Thank you.